Welcome, everybody, inside the coach's office. I'm your host, Dan Murphy, alongside my co host, Brian Barnes, and it's an emergency podcast tonight. Brian, breaking news: Michigan fires Sherrone Moore for cause. What are your thoughts on this, Brian? Pretty crazy news.
Extremely crazy. I was my phone started blowing up. I was just sitting watching TV with my wife, and I just got done saying to her too when this started happening. I said, the next time Dan and I were going to talk, like there was a lot to talk about, right? The Lions still going into LA, and the Tigers seems like not doing a whole lot at the winter meetings, and then now we're talking about Michigan not having a head football coach. So that was, as the joke goes, as the kids say, that was not on our bingo card. And what a time to be a Michigan fan if you think about it. Like, look at it this way. Like,
it's great. What a time. It's awesome.
My thinking is like, okay, their basketball team might be the most dominant basketball team in years. And like, I know like there are people that are saying, well, they haven't really played a tough schedule. Okay, that's true, but you're housing people by like 40.
Oh, they beat Gonzaga by 40.
That's not normal. Like that's unreal. And so it seems like the football program is in a really uncomfortable spot right now. And we're going to get to it because there's a lot of ways this thing can go. Like, if you would have told Michigan fans, a few months ago or a few years ago, like this is what would happen. I don't think many would agree or would believe us for that matter.
Yeah, so I had just gotten out of the gym. I look at my phone and I see in one of the group chats I'm in, Sherrone Moore fired. I'm like, what in the hell? So I go to Twitter to try to find information, then my phone dies. And I'm like, oh my God. So the first thing I wanted to text you, like, we got to do an emergency podcast. I'm trying to go onto Twitter and I'm like, I can't do any of this. My phone dies. Oh my God. So I turn on 97.1 and of course I'm trying to get information. And of course they immediately go to commercial. I'm like, oh my God. So I finally get home and figure out what the hell's going on. So I initially heard it, so I didn't know. So I'm the drive home from the gym. I'm thinking, I didn't know why they fired him. I just knew he was fired. So I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is kind of late to do this, but, maybe it has a lot of, 2 years in a row, they had less than 70 passing yards against Ohio State. I'm thinking of all like X's and O's football stuff of why he might get let go. And then you find out the real reason, relationship with a staff member, female staff member, like just unbelievable. And for, just a few years ago, we deal with a similar situation with Mel Tucker getting fired at Michigan State. And now we're dealing with this with the head coach of the University of Michigan. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like to blow your careers over this stuff. Like you're the head coaches of Big Ten programs.
Prominent universities. Yep. Yeah. That's I mean, I don't have an answer. Like, I don't have a response. Like I thought, maybe the interesting Michigan news of the week was going to be that they're hiring a different quarterback coach, right, to help develop Bryce Underwood. That came out yesterday.
Or the new special teams coach.
Or the new special teams coach, Kerry Coombs, which is a big deal. But apparently,
or Ohio State special teams coordinator.
Yeah. So this is definitely a shock. So it goes. I mean, you wonder. When things like this happen, like who knew what when, right, like with the timing of everything, because like you mentioned, this is not ideal. Like signing day just happened. They're preparing for a bowl game, right, against Texas, and they talked about the importance of that. And I who knows.
Well, that's the thing, Brian. Like we had seen these rumors on Twitter come out, a few weeks ago, and these are things that, you question, like, are these things we want to bring to the podcast? Stuff like this. I just, I don't feel comfortable bringing stuff like that up until we know for sure.
Yeah.
And, but we had heard about this a couple weeks ago, and sure enough, man, it's you look into Twitter and you start looking at the things, man, it's bad.
Well,
it's bad, man.
And I hope not, but you never know anymore because it's big time money. Athletics, right? If they had beaten Ohio State and they're a playoff team, does this happen right now? Like I
hate to say that, but I mean we know how dirty this college football is, man. Like we talk about it all the time with the College Football Retro Show, and you know how it's just turned, everything's about money. It's so much greed. There's so much hypocrisy. The used to be the joke, like, oh, it's all about the student athlete. Like that has long gone.
Zero chance.
Gone. It is all about money. And man, this is
Dan, thinking about, like, to me, there's two angles to this, right? There's the immediate, right, and then long term, right? And that's with anything when something like this happens. Like in the immediate, I think the obvious thing to do is Biff Poggi will become the interim head coach and
Yeah,
coach him through the bowl game.
coach the bowl game. Yeah,
I think that's obvious, right? But the bigger long term ramifications is, like, there's always going to be names, right? There will always be big names that are going to come up with the Michigan football job. But you and I talked before we got on, and I wonder if this is a situation where after Lloyd Carr, retired, and there were some prominent, coaches that turned down the job because it just seemed at the time the situation was unstable, right? Obviously, we know about Les Miles. There was even Greg Schiano, who was at Rutgers, and then ultimately, Michigan hired Rich Rodriguez. Like, these names right here, other than Brian Kelly, so he might go to the top of the list. But, like, you just got done removing a guy for having some controversial off the field stuff. Well, Brian Kelly, like, there's been things like, he got accused of killing the staff member or whatever a few years ago at LSU, right? Who was videoing practice and whatnot. Like, I don't think Michigan wants to go that route. And then
I don't think Brian Kelly. I think just because he's a big name and
is
unemployed at the moment, he's going to get thrown into all this. Doubt. But he is not.
No doubt.
There's no way the Michigan fan base would revolt if they hired Brian Kelly.
And to me, like the other two guys on the screen, and we could talk about other more, in my opinion, more realistic names, later. But they're at prominent universities who've given them everything that they need to be successful there, right? So why would they leave, other than it's a situation where they're just not a good fit? And the one argument and that people are going to talk about that they've thrown around is Kalen DeBoer, and you talked about that already. Like, if he didn't get into the playoffs this year, like, that's a school where, like, hey man, like, no, like that doesn't fly here, right? So he would have been potentially, I could see that, but I don't know. Like, he's in a he's,
well,
like,
we talked about the college football rankings our last podcast and how we thought Notre Dame got screwed. This may have screwed over Michigan. The fact that Alabama got in, because if Alabama's not in the playoffs, I would think Michigan would have some pretty serious talks with DeBoer. I mean, those talks could still happen,
sure,
but I think this just makes it a hell of a lot more difficult when you're trying to prepare for playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, timing isn't great. So, could this decision have come out a week before, and then maybe Matt Campbell's on the table right before he goes to Penn State? There's the timing isn't great, and again, in the immediate, like, signing day just happened, right? So I don't know the NCAA rules here in regards to something like this happening, and can they get out of their agreement to go to the University of Michigan? I don't know how that would work, but the portal season is going to be coming, and you always wonder in the talk with Bryce Underwood, right? Like, is he now thinking, like, okay, like, the guy that
gotta be? I mean,
like,
he has to be, right?
Maybe the reason besides the money, but, like, he really had a great relationship with Sherrone Moore, and now he's like, all right, screw this, I want to go somewhere else. Like, there's so many layers to this, unfortunately. Just bad timing, and just college football is so out of whack. Like, just the fact that this is even a thing, and you mentioned it along with Mel Tucker, and, like, there's been other people in history, freaking John F. Kennedy, right? Like, your reputation gets soured a little bit because you have seems like you have a great life, and you can't.
Well, Brian, I want to bring up the last situation with Michigan that I can remember. Now, I was pretty young. You might be able to elaborate a little bit more than I can.
Yeah.
But Gary Moeller. In his situation,
bar fight. Threw a guy. Yeah. Yep. Threw a guy out of
that whole deal. And obviously, it was a different circumstance. But do you remember, like, the time frame of when they went to Lloyd Carr, which was obviously a great option, but that they ended up going to. But Michigan doesn't have a Lloyd Carr on staff right now that they can go to.
No,
but do you remember like what the timing was?
I think. I mean, it was around, like, Lloyd Carr's first year, I believe, was 95. Like, I want to say it was the winter of 95. Let me look. But there was, like, Yeah, it was a 95. So it had to have been,
So,
after the bowl game, right? Because I knew it wasn't like this. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't this time. It had to be after the first of the year into the winter. Yeah, not good. Actually, looking back on it, more information. Well, this was an article from May. It's not saying the exact date, but like, yeah, I mean, it was in the off season, right? I mean, it wasn't. Yeah. I mean, Michigan, like this. I mean, if there's any silver lining here for Michigan is that it is December and there's going to be time.
You can look at NFL coaches, and
there's NFL
name. Yeah, so yes. I think that's probably the more likely scenario is you look into the NFL and a name. I don't know if they would feel that he's head coach ready. But Jesse Minter,
the obvious
defense coordinator for the Chargers under Jim Harbaugh. That feels like an obvious fit. Obviously, Mike McDonald would be great, but he's the head coach of Seattle, and they're doing fantastic. So I don't think he's going to be an option. But I think the next best would be probably Jesse Minter. But again, they're going to have to evaluate if they think he's ready to take on a head coaching a job like the University of Michigan. But man, he seems like an obvious option.
Yeah, he had Jesse Minter. I think there were some links to him in some other schools at some point for jobs, so that's possible. But isn't his status with, similar to Jim Harbaugh, like they can't return to the NFL?
I don't think Minter's in that.
Okay.
I don't believe.
Okay. So if that's the case, like he's the obvious one. But I mean, he went to, he took a job in the NFL because he wanted to be in the NFL. You know what I mean? So who knows? Like he could be an NFL head coach. Like I think he's that respected as a coordinator. You know what I'm saying? Because there are young guys. Think D'Amico Ryans with the Texans, right? Like a young defensive guy. So there has been some precedent. Mike McDonald's another one you just mentioned, right? So theoretically, he'd be, with the job he's done with the Chargers, he could be an NFL head coach. So you're right though. He's an obvious one. I think John Harbaugh has gotten brought up, but like. Again, a lot depends.
Here's a wild one. John Gruden,
if he wants to get back into coaching. Yeah, he would be. I mean, that would be. I would love that. Like, I think.
I mean, I don't think you would have a problem recruiting. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody's seen his face, knows his voice. Like, they know who he is. They know that he's well respected. All he has to do is flash a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah,
like he's got all the credentials.
I agree. No, he'd be a lot of fun. Like there's going to be a plenty of names. It just like, and the other thing he would bring is like, I wonder if they're going to look for a guy with a pedigree or with a background in offense and handling quarterbacks. Right. And John Gruden would be perfect for that, obviously, because he's had a lot of success with that. So,
because now you're going to have to recruit your own guys now. Like we talked about with Underwood, you're going to have to re-recruit your own guys. And maybe Gruden would be fantastic for that.
Maybe a name that I don't know if it would get Michigan fans excited, but he's known offensively, Brian Daboll, who got fired as a New York Giants head coach. I don't think that would get the fan base like fired up. But he's a smart offensive guy. Another one, Jed Fish, offensive guy, former Michigan assistant, right? Who's now the head coach at Washington. I think his name goes more to the top than really a lot more of the big names that we talked about already.
So I'm looking it up now. Yes. So Jesse Minter does have a 1-year show cause.
Hey, no, I was going to say I was going to have some fun at the expense of my Michigan friends, but hey, he did nothing wrong though. They did nothing wrong. They just can't come back to college football.
That 2023 team was 15-0, no asterisks. Okay, they won it fair and square.
Oh,
okay, I'm gonna have my pennant in my man cave hanging up proudly forever. All right, they won it fair and square. Nothing you can say that there will never be an asterisk. There was no vacated wins. They won that thing. Even though none of their coaches can ever coach in college football again.
Right. We do have a couple comments, Dan.
Yes, actually. We do. We have quite a few comments.
I'll let you
get into some of these. So, JD Ellis brings up, I feel like Bryce worked better with Biff, and we had brought this up in a podcast. I think we were previewing Ohio State game. We had talked about how Bryce Underwood was great in the 2 games where Sherrone Moore was gone.
He did.
Maybe the two of the best games of the season for Bryce Underwood. So that is interesting. under what I would assume, if he doesn't transfer,
Right.
will play in the bowl game. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs with that bowl game
Yeah,
against
like
Texas.
the timing the timing really is bad for player development, because like coaches will tell you, even though Notre Dame and others like, that opt out or say the 15 practices aren't that big of a deal. Well, I don't believe that. Like I think they are a big deal. So like part of that development, that player development and Bryce Underwood's development is a pretty big deal between now and the bowl game, right? So like if you're gonna
Those practices are huge.
That's what I'm saying. If you're gonna let him practice with this staff for the rest of this offseason up until the bowl game, maybe it's just going to be somebody on the current staff. Maybe it is going to be Biff, just to keep that rolling, because the worst thing that could happen is like, here's your scheme for the next month, bring in a new guy. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to have a staff, player meeting so you can learn our new terminology. Like that doesn't do any good either. Right. So it's like either you make the change and you find who you want now, right. Or you stay with it for that reason. Like I think it's an extremely tough spot. And then, like you said, if you're Bryce Underwood, like who knows what his relationship was with like Sherrone Moore. Maybe he's not a fan of Chip Lindley and the scheme and what he was coached to do this year. Like who knows? There's so many layers to it, which is fascinating.
Brendan Burke brings up Jeff Brom.
Oh yeah,
that'd be a pretty good candidate.
He would be.
That would be definitely one to consider.
Offensive guy, played quarterback at a high level. Yep, I agree.
Current Louisville head coach.
Louisville head coach. Yeah. No, I agree.
Purdue.
He would be good. Yep.
Steve Sargent brings up it should always be a Michigan man.
So that's the problem and good thing that Michigan, I think, runs into, right? Is like Rich Rod wasn't a Michigan man. Obviously, right, and there are a lot of issues there, but he's a genius offensively, and nobody can deny that, right? But there is some truth to knowing the culture and knowing, like, we got to beat Ohio every year, right? There is some truth to that. I just think whoever it is, it's either somebody that has that offensive background, right, or somebody who can hire like the highest level. Like I think Chip Kelly's available again, right? You know what I mean, as an offensive coordinator. But it's got to be somebody, I think, that has that background of coaching quarterbacks or having an elite offense where they at their stops.
Yeah, Angelo brings up John Gruden, which we talked about. Yeah. I mean, I would, as a Michigan fan, I'd love it. I mean, I'm a huge John Gruden fan, and I'd love it. Steve Sargent, I'm going to kind of have to censor this comment a little bit, but basically kind of talks about what we had mentioned, when it comes to both Mel Tucker and Sherrone Moore, but definitely Sherrone Moore here. I mean, you're the head coach of the University of Michigan. He basically just, asked like, man, this is a dream job. Like, how do you throw that away just basically for sexual deviancy? Like, right. It's insane. Like, I just don't understand it. But this is something, I don't want to get too deep here, Brian, but like, this is something we've talked about before. Like, people at the highest level of anything, right? Mm-hmm. They're excellent at a certain thing. I always feel like there's something else that's going to even it out, that's going to bring them down, right? That evens it out. They're flawed somewhere else. If they're exceptional at a certain thing, that they're so far above average, there's something else that they're going to be below average in. And you see it so many times whether it's politics, whether it's sports, whether it's, entertainment industry, like there's just something else that kind of evens things out with these people, man. And it's just sad, man. It's sad. Like Sherrone Moore, like for me, man, I'm a huge fan of his, and he's like, I watched his offensive line video like numerous times, man. Like it helped me out so much. I got so much from that, from as a coach, like learning offensive line play and how to coach offensive line through him and through his teaching. And it's like, man, like it sucks, man. It sucks because you can't look up to these guys. No, like, there's so many. We talked about when we did, a lot of the Michigan Ohio State stuff. We talked about Urban Meyer, like unbelievable coach, unbelievable, communicator, but a flawed human being. Well,
that's why it goes back to like as a coach and as an educator and as a parent, like I tell people, like, we don't know the lives of all these coaches and all the all these celebrities, all these politicians. Like at the end of the day, like they might not be good people. You know what I'm saying? And it does suck. It like when you get older as an adult, right? like the real part of life like happens, and these things happen. And I wonder, I'm not going to label all Michigan fans here because I think this is sports fans in general. How many fans of their teams would look at a situation like this and say, hey, that's none of our business. That's personal. That's between he and his wife and the woman, or, whatever. He should still be the coach. Like, that has nothing to do with it. This is a personal matter, right? And that happens. And that happens. There's a segment of the population. Like, think of guys that have played.
Rick
Pitino's another. That's a great point. That's a great one. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's right. I guess kudos to Michigan if they're taking a stand on this and saying, no, this is not acceptable. Maybe if it wasn't a staff member, maybe Michigan is taking that route. Like, hey, yeah, not our business. Like, just be better. You know what I mean? I don't know. But just unfortunate all the way around. Yeah, just unfortunate because this is, there were rumors. There were some people that weren't happy with Sherrone Moore from a football perspective, right? Some of the, like you said, right? And now this. But
we had talked about it a couple weeks ago, and we were highly critical of how Bryce Underwood's been developed, how he performed in the Ohio State game. Like, I was blown away at how uncomfortable Bryce Underwood looked in that game, both from a passing perspective and from a running perspective. Mm-hmm. Like, they tried to run with him. They had some design runs, and it looked awful. He just looked so uncomfortable. And that is a direct indicator of the head coach, in my opinion. To have I know he's a true freshman, but to be 11 games in and just to look that off and that uncomfortable in the biggest of games, it was alarming to me from just an X's and O's standpoint of coaching. And then obviously you get this, out the field stuff that he had to be gone. But you wonder if, and he brought it up, like, they beat Ohio State. Do we know about this right now?
I don't.
I don't know. I hate to say it. I don't know.
Awful to say. I don't know. So the intrigue. Again, you mentioned, like, the first name you mentioned was Kalen DeBoer. Like, even though they're about to prepare for a playoff game, like, that phone is ringing, right?
Yeah,
and that has to be. It has to be.
Michigan would be crazy not to.
If you're Kalen DeBoer, like. Okay, let's say you're Kalen DeBoer and you were thinking, like, hey, this I'm not a good fit here anyway, right? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do if you're him? Like, you got to coach your team in the playoff, right? Like, they're still a very talented team that I don't think they'll win the national championship, but what do you do?
I mean, they have to make the call, though. Like, Michigan
has to make the call,
and he has to answer.
You
don't just ignore the University of Michigan.
Who's to say like these conversations haven't been, like, floated about anyway, right? Who's to say they haven't, like, reached out and said, hey, by the way, this might happen.
Well, you don't have to coach the playoff. Lane Kiffin has shown that.
No, I'm aware. Especially if your team, like I said, especially like if you're a national title contender, like, I don't think Ryan Day's leaving. You know what I'm saying? To take an NFL job right now, right? Like, I don't think that's happening. Or Kurt Signetti, I don't think he's leaving. Which would be crazy, mind-boggling to think about. You would never would have thought this, but, like, what if Michigan were to pick up the phone and say, "Yo, Kurt," right?
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
You said 3 years ago, the Indiana head coach is going to be offered the Michigan job, and it's on automatic. He's turning it down.
How about this? 3 years ago, the Indiana head coach is in his second year in the playoffs, and the Michigan head coach hasn't been once. Like, crazy times. Yeah, I got nothing else, Dan, other than I think either one or two things. I think they need to make the move soon, like now. Right. And get their head coach, like, now, and whatever they got to do to get that, if they have it nailed. If not, the longer this drags out, I think it hurts Bryce Underwood's development to have him go through these bowl practices these next few weeks and then hire somebody else and bring in a whole new scheme. I think that hurts his development. I don't think it helps him at all. And then you need to, I mean, it's NFL terms, right? But, like, you need to go to your franchise quarterback. At least financially, you need to go to your franchise quarterback and, like, is he going to have a say? He's probably going to have a say. Has to have a say because he's a
I would bring this up too. Should he be the franchise quarterback?
whether you believe it or not, financially, he is your franchise quarterback.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, maybe he looks to transfer, and maybe you're not so trying so hard to keep him.
No,
like, I don't know. Like, all
maybe.
this is going to depend on who they bring in as the head coach, but like,
maybe
he
be.
isn't.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Like, I wonder what the layers are to that with, like, I'm sure they had conversations with them, maybe like a contract, like, hey, if you transfer, you're gonna, like, you need to return this or you don't get this or whatever. Like, who knows, right? Like that. Well, regardless, that conversation has to be had. Like, I'm with you. Like, well, but what if their thinking is, you're right, he isn't our franchise quarterback, but he's like, too bad, I'm good. I'm staying. You got to pay me. Like, that's
like the Javi Baez situation where, like, you want him to opt out and he doesn't.
Yes, insanity. Like, you want him to move on, but nope, here he is.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Well, put it this way: if you had to make a prediction, do you think Underwood's going to stay?
I don't.
I don't think he's going to stay either. I don't think he's going to stay for that round for this.
No.
Like, every school in the country is probably going to be calling him, I would think.
There is some
despite the fact that he didn't show that.
Here's the other thing too. Like Michigan and a lot of schools, they talk about their culture, and their culture is something they're proud of, right? Is Michigan's culture extremely strong and proud now? Like, when they had that meeting today, right? Is it so? And I think about that when Sherrone Moore took over, and you talked about it already, like the amount of coaches that left. Right? Jim Harbaugh left and Jesse Minter left and others, right? Like, it's different. It's different than it was just 2 years ago, right? After they won the national championship. So, I mean, if that culture isn't as strong as it was, he's gone. Because there is some truth to that, like your brotherhood. Like, hey, you're working out with these guys, you're grinding still. Hey, man, we're Michigan, right? We're Michigan men. That's why we're here. That is still a thing. But maybe it's not as big of a thing as it was a couple years ago. So
there was an aspect of that Ohio State game where I felt like a lot of the core values that kind of Michigan always had didn't feel like we're there. A lot of just trying to pick fights. And, after the whistle crap and just a lot of that type of stuff. And it kind of was going on throughout the season, but man, it really came to a head in that Ohio State game. Like, it's just. The whole season never really felt right.
You and I had talked about this before, though, and I even said it a little bit with Harbaugh, but that's just because I'm extremely old school. Like, I felt that in general over the last few years, and to Jim Harbaugh's credit, he toned it down a lot. Like, do you remember the signing of the stars and spending the night at a recruit's house?
That was a little different to me, Brian, and I know where you're going to get with this point, but the signing with the stars to me was like, hey, we got to get Michigan's brand back out there.
That's where it bothers me.
That's what I felt like Harbaugh was doing.
But that's where it bothers me. Like, all of that bothered me. Like, okay, if you're Michigan, right? You're the University of Michigan. Why are you resorting to that? And to his credit, like, he toned it down a lot over the years, right? But I was still bothered, and it continued with Sherrone Moore with, like, players. Okay, I'm sorry. You can call me whiny. You can call me a Michigan State fan, whatever. Planting the flag at Ohio State is awful. Like, Bo Schembechler would have never done that. Like, never. Lloyd Carr would have never done it. Like, that bothered me a lot. Waving goodbye, all that stuff. Like, I'm sorry, it's wrong. And we had talked a lot about after the game last time about how our respect for Ryan Day went up a little bit. Like, because he, like, calmed it down. He's like, no. He's like, Sherrone, you got to get the guys out of here. We got to get them out of here. We don't want an incident. Like, I respect that. Right. And that was pretty cool. And then when they went to celebrate with their fans and Michigan stood at the, like, oh, it was okay for Michigan to plant the flag a year ago, but no way we're letting it happen. And at the big hot, like, it's just like, okay, really? Like, yep. Bothered me.
Yeah. There's an aspect to what I think Michigan, after the 2020 season, more after the 2018 and 2019 years when they got blown out by Ohio State, and it felt like Michigan had a championship worthy team, and they got blown out by Ohio State. there's a lot of rumors that, and we've talked about this, but there's a lot of rumors that Ohio State had stolen Michigan signs. They were stealing Michigan signs. They knew Don Brown's signs and his signal and all that. And Don Brown was kind of stubborn and refused to change his ways and all that stuff. Okay. But I feel like Michigan made a decision at that point, like, hey, we can either stay as like a 10 to 20 program, hang around, but we're never going to beat Ohio State. We're never going to be top 5. We're never going to win a national championship. Or we got to get down in the mud. We got to get dirty. We got to get our hands dirty. And we got to do some things that we have traditionally not done as the University of Michigan. But if we want to take the next step, and Harbaugh was probably at the point where his back was against the wall, he was going to get fired. He took a huge pay cut. And he's just like, screw it. Let's get our hands dirty. Let's go win the whole thing.
I'm with you, man.
Did the sign stealing and all that stuff that wouldn't have happened before.
Yep. And
it feels like it it started with that, and it's eroded to the point where we are now, where Michigan football just does not feel like what it had been our entire lives. And it's come to a head to this point right now. And they're not in a good way. They are not in a good way right now.
The boomer of me.
And that's saying that they just won a national title 2 years ago. But they are not who they are. They are not the leaders and best. They do not have the moral standard. No, all of that stuff is gone.
Yeah, that's the part that rubbed me the wrong way the most. Is forever Michigan always talked about, like, hey, they might be doing that stuff down south, but we don't cheat, so we might not be playing for national championships, but man, we're doing it the right way, and that's gone. Yeah, I'm with you. That's gone. So it's just, the boomer in me is like, this is an unfortunate time as a sports fan period and a college sports fan period. I just think it's all crazy, and this unfortunately adds to it.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time on our other podcast, College Football Retro Show. Like, college football is not. It's just not what it used to be right now, man. It's in a bad spot right now in so many different ways. And locally, to see what has happened with the 2 head coaches, with Mel Tucker and now Sherrone Moore, it's ugly, man. All of it is ugly.
Well, how about this? 2 months ago, if I would have told you on December 10th, Michigan State football is on better footing than Michigan.
They are. I said it before this all happened. I'm like,
fair statement.
I kind of feel better about Michigan State's head coaching situation than Michigan's, and that was before all this stuff come out. Now it's like, oh my goodness. And then you see Pat Fitzgerald talking to all the rich alums like at the Michigan State game, and they're getting all this money, and they're talking about building a new stadium and all this stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, there's like in all seriousness, like, Michigan State has an opportunity here. Like, this is an opening now. So they got a little bit of an opening.
Well, so when Rich Rodriguez got hired at Michigan, I remember saying that to all my Michigan State friends, like, for a lot of reasons, like, now is the time for Michigan State. And they went on that run with Mark D'Antonio for 10 years.
This feels like a very similar scenario.
For a lot of reasons, right? Because, again, Rich Rodriguez, even though I like to scheme, he was an outsider. And then, like, he recruited different type of kids. So at that time, Michigan State was able to grasp it. And, yeah, maybe now as well. Who knows?
Yeah, fascinating.
I saw
a complete bombshell that dropped today. Yeah.
And another point to that, I saw Pat Fitzgerald sent the Michigan High School Coaches Association a text or a letter, or just said, hey, like, I'm looking forward to work with you, stuff like that. And all the coaches are fired up.
He's doing all the right things.
That doesn't necessarily mean all the top dudes are going to Michigan State, but like,
no. But it gives you a good sign of like, hey, he gets it.
Yep.
He gets it.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So crazy. Not a conversation I thought you and I would be having on December 10th at 6:00.
No. You had texted me, and it was just shortly before the, hey, do you want to do some type of show about the winter meeting?
I did.
That pales in comparison of what is going on right now with Michigan football and Sherrone Moore. But
the only thing that could potentially meet this is if we do an emergency podcast that says Tarek Skubal got traded.
Yeah, who knows? 10 minutes from now, we could get off this, and then I turn on Twitter, and all of a sudden, Skubal's traded.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Nightmare.
But yeah, so we should, man. We got quite a few people watching right now. We should let people know, like, this Sunday. Brian and I are doing a pretty big show at noon this Sunday. We got 2 special guests. Clay Snowden from Just Baseball is going to join us. Talk about the winter meetings, talk about Tarek Skubal and everything that's going on with the Detroit Tigers offseason. And then at 12:45, Sean Belegian from Woodward Sports, longtime Detroit sports radio OG, one of my heroes, man. I grew up listening to Sean Pelesian, always been a huge fan of his, so I absolutely thrilled that we're going to have him on again 12:45 Sunday. He's going to preview the Lions-Rams game with us and also talk about Pat Fitzgerald and Michigan State. And I'm sure we're going to talk about some Sherrone Moore talk and what's going on with Michigan. So again, noon Sunday, we got two very special guests. Very excited to show that we're going to have for you this Sunday at noon. But for tonight, this has been Inside the Coach's Office, a special emergency podcast to discuss the firing of Sherrone Moore. For Brian Barnes, I am Dan Murphy. We'll see you Sunday night or Sunday afternoon.